Hello, this is Ben, and today we're going to talk about the meaning and the purpose of art. As an introduction, I've got water in a pink lemonade can, so it is late. Normal for Ben. Shouldn't be, but it is. The word art is a very odd little short word, like my name. It is a very strange thing. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where there's like other, I just used my name, didn't I? Ben. Where you've been. That's the thing, like, yo, this other person has the same name as me, that's so awkward. Well, guess what? My name was a linking verb. I have been, you have been, he, she, it has been, we have been, they have been. I've been, what, who, you been, I thought I was been. It's confusing. But we just did a little bit of artistic play, didn't we? And we need to delve into what art is. What's interesting to me is the people who get really offended about art. Like, I have a cousin, he's a young male, and he just gets so upset with dance and ballet. It's such a waste of time. But then he'll turn around and sit there and want me to watch anime with him. Japanese animation, cartooning, storytelling. I had another guy that worked for me, and he just got really upset that, like, all the yard cleanup that we do, because I run a lawn company. It's not really a company, it's just me. Company, I don't have any company. Run it right now. But the point is, he got really upset inside that, like, it wasn't really important or whatever. And, does it matter that we cut the grass or whatever? And I was like, well, I don't know. What do you mean, does it matter? What do you mean? And it was, boiled down to, it was just art to him, therefore pointless. Then, when I take him his money, I see that he is sitting at his house with his girlfriend, or no, before she gets there, by himself, for an hour or two watching The Big Bang Theory, which is storytelling, more specifically in the form of the motion picture, moving video, which is a major art form. And it's a situation comedy, which is a specific type of, it's art. You're going to sit there and pay $60 a month to make sure you don't miss the latest offering of art through the video box. But the art that we do in the yard, that's a waste of time. Okay, so yeah, you run into this. It's kind of similar. My dad complained because his wife, my stepmom, wants a new pool. She wants to buy a pool, do a pool, and he's like, "How's that make us money?" Well, I want to buy a new combine, or I want to buy a farm equipment. It's going to make us more money. It's like, yes, Daddy, it will make you more money. But what are you going to do with the money? Like, in other words, money is just paper, unless you can trade it for other things that you actually want. When I go to the store and I buy a gallon of milk or a can of pink lemonade and then put water in it, I'd rather have the milk than the money. So everything I do is not just to have more money. Money is pointless, except that you can trade it to get other things that you want, like a pool, or a hamburger, or your TV that you watch. I'll never forget when that's another story, I can't go there, but he said the antenna broke off on the house, and he said, well, all we get is PBS, but I like PBS. It's great, GPTV. And then was like, it sucks, Dad. And then, like, he had to get surgery on his neck. Next day, boom, he called DirecTV and satellite. And we've gone for like 6 months. Oh, PBS is fine. It wasn't all of a sudden. Anyway. So, I'm not saying, working hard and making money is a waste of time, but essentially the connection to art is like, we say this art's a waste of time, we say that art's a waste of time, but ultimately, like, when we say waste of time, what does that mean? When we say something needs to be done, what does that mean? That this is needed. We mean that it is necessary to achieve another goal. But so, like, in other words, like, If you want to get clean, you need soap, you need water, you need this, you need some free time. But essentially all of that are things you need in order to achieve some goal to be clean. Why do I need to be clean? Well, you need to be clean so that you'll be healthy. And eventually, you're going to get back to something that you just want. There are no needs that are just needs in themselves. You don't really need anything until you want something. So if you want to die, then you need a gun to blow your brains out. You don't need a bath to live long and prosper, which I need to go take a bath. But you see the point. So art is an interesting thing, and it is something that is intrinsic to what makes us human. This is something I've done a lot of thinking about in the past, and I don't think I've ever really done that much video on this, but it's incredibly interesting. In other words, art, ultimately, we're just talking about expression, about communication, about saying things. And there is a mistake that we make with how we communicate. We think that, when we say something artistically, we're saying it in a vague way. But then if we say it with concrete language or numbers or something, we're saying it in a clear, refined way. And if that is the way you think, I want to deconstruct that for you now. The important premise to understand what I'm about to say is that you are not God. Even if you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter at this point. The point is that you are not God. Therefore, you do not know everything. Okay? So, how do we learn more things? Well, there's sort of two models of learning. One is computational, and the other is what humans do, which is imaginational. I guess I just made up a word. Someone had probably said it before, so who cares? But computational. In school, we used to write computer programs, and we would be something like x equals 0. Alright, add 1 to x while x is less than 5. And then, you know what I'm saying? So the loop would run in the program, and you would add 1 in, and then it would run again, and add 1 in until it got to 5, and then it would bounce out and go to the next thing in the program, in the code. We go down. So, a computer will just compute. It will move from A to B and compute to the next thing. But as a human being, you think very differently. You think imaginationally. So if I was to tell the computer, all right, I want you to keep adding keep adding 1 to your value x, and keep increasing it by 1, and keep doing so until it's greater than 5. No, keep doing so until 3 equals 4. Then the computer would actually, what it'll do is it'll do a truncation. And so what that means is it'll just keep going until it's gone a really long number of times, and it'll spit back. This is an infinite loop. Okay? The computer did not calculate that there was an infinite loop. The humans who set up the software just said, if it runs this many times, just spit this message back out to the user, or to the programmer, or the program tester, actually. The computer can't figure out an infinite loop. You can't computationally come to that conclusion. This is going to run forever. The computer will just keep going. Next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. The computer can figure out tons of stuff computationally that you can't figure out. Your computational abilities are not anywhere as good as a computer. You plug in the numbers in the computer, got it. Here's the answer. But imaginationally, the computer can't. It'll just keep adding forever. It'll never figure out what a kid will figure out. I say, keep adding numbers until 3 equals 4, and the kid goes, huh, that'll never happen, right? Even a young child, because that's intrinsic to what it means to be human, to think in a human way. We have no idea how to program a computer, how to do that. It is an intrinsically human thing. And the interesting thing is that the Bible says that we are made in God's image. So what is an image? And it's interesting, isn't it? There's a connection in the root word between imagination and image, isn't there? Take a dollar bill out. You probably have one. If you don't, and you're poor, get out your penny. If you're rich, get out your 20 or whatever. So I'm just pointing a finger. You're a horrible poor person if you have a penny, and you're just a nasty rich person if you have a 20. But if you're a perfectly wonderful person if you have just a oneer. Alright, I think all I have is a 20 and a bunch of coins. But you look at the image on the paper. It's a piece of paper with dots of ink, with ink spilled on it in a precise way. And you see, George Washington. That's George Washington. That's not George Washington. That is an image of George Washington. Your ability to see George Washington in that takes imagination. You cannot see images without imagination. Right, so think about it. God. God is the ultimate thing. How is it that you and I have the ability to even have a word God, a concept God? I mean, think about it. God is indescribable. But when I say that he's indescribable, did I not just describe him as the indescribable? This is an interesting thing about human knowledge. We essentially have the ability to know some things about a thing without knowing everything about a thing. And we can conceive of things like God, but we didn't compute God. We didn't add our way up to God. We don't know everything there is to know about God. If a computer figured out that the thing is going to run to infinity, it would actually have to count one by one all the way to infinity and all the steps in between. As a human, you can just figure out that's infinite. That's infinite without actually counting to infinity, without actually having the full comprehension of what infinity really is. But you have some idea of it. That is human imagination. That is how humans think. That is how humans learn. Here's the thing. If we learn in that way, that means that we conceive of things that we don't fully understand. And they probably begin in the faintest of whisper of our understanding. And we try to grab hold of it and understand it better. And that's where art comes in. You see, art is the human attempt to express things that we barely understand and are doing our best to put to words, but we can't. And so all of the art forms, storytelling, motion picture, watercolor, landscaping, there's so many. That's what they're doing. And we'll go through some in a minute. But even this Minute Maid can, it's a work of art. You're trying to express something, even the word Minute Maid actually references when frozen orange juice came out. They called it Minute Maid because the idea was you can make orange juice in a minute. You don't have to squeeze a bunch of oranges. You just have this thing that the woman can buy in the store. And then it was like, well, if the woman doesn't have to squeeze oranges all day, I guess she doesn't have to stay at home. She can just get a job. But yeah, that feminism comes from stuff like Minute Maid, right? And so the name it brought a sense of juice. And so Coca-Cola company pay money for this name and put it on their juice. And it's a product that has value, a registered trademark. Okay, that's marketing. Like, if you look at a store sign and it says protective cleaners, you think to yourself like, well, what do they do? Do they clean dishes? Do they clean my house? Do they clean my clothes? Are they dry cleaners? Are they car cleaners? What do they get inside my car and do a great job there? I mean, what do they clean? Do they pressure wash in houses? But if you see a sign, and all it has to do is say Schwarzenegger, and that's marketing. And that's an art form. Essentially, marketing is the attempt to. I mean, you know what Schwarzenegger. You know a lot about what that product is. Fast. You don't have to ask a lot of questions. Marketing is about getting information to the people effectively and quickly. A lot of information with a little bit of attention from them. Just one word, Schwarzenegger. I know what that is. It's probably going to be rocket launchers, right? So, back to the thing about art. Humans, with their art, grasp onto things they just barely are able to say. And it's the attempt to say things that we have a hard time saying or haven't even figured out how to say. It is the attempt to push the boundary of expression into new territory. It's a pioneering thing. It's a realm of discovery. And when art is successful, it loses its artistic nature and becomes boring everyday language. Because when you get a way to say it very concretely and specifically, you move from art into just, I can just know how to say what I'm talking about. And language has moved. I mean, you look at the English language, has more words than any other language ever, like over 2 million. You look at Hebrew, okay, in the time of Moses, 6,000 words. With two, they had two verb tenses. Two, like, you know, past, present, future, you know, all that. Two. And, you know, we have way more than that. With past perfect, future perfect, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so art forms are all around us, and they're cool. An example for skateboarders, if you call skateboarding a sport, a lot of skaters would get really offended. I would say maybe the majority, you know, maybe get really offended really fast. You know, you see this. Here's a dude doing a back nose blunt on this weird thing. I think it's in Barcelona or maybe a northwestern city. I don't know where it is. But the point is, you know, why do a back nose blunt on this thing in this spot? What is the point? Art. You're expressing something. You're saying something. And the argument I make with a lot of skateboarders is like, yeah, well, I think, you know, we maybe have a better idea of what art is, and we're still kind of confused with what sports are, really. I mean, who cares who took a ball past the line or put it through a hole? What is the point of that? And that's actually a question of much debate, the philosophy of sport. What is the right kind of sports fan? Why do we care about sports? But art's a little bit better understood philosophically. It's about expressing, and it's about pushing the limits of expression. And so that's why skateboarding is cool in its own little sense, because it's an art form that is also a social activity. It's an art form a lot of people can do and get behind, and it's fun. And it is athletic, but it removes a lot of the negative stuff that comes with athletics, a lot of the bullying and that kind of thing. Bullying's kind of a catch word. I'll give you an example. I was playing frisbee a long time ago, and with the teenagers at the church. We were at like a church retreat, and the guy was like, "Oh, the middle school over there," and all of the high school over here. And so I was an adult, so I figured, nobody's gonna go play with the middle school kids, so I better go. This one other girl actually went, and so it was like adult, you know, I guess. And so like it was her on one side with her, and she had some middle school kids, and me on another side with my middle school kids. And middle school is a terrible time. Like, I think me and this one other kid picked up the frisbee and we botched he botched a cut like 2 passes, and I think I might have botched 4, like just really bad passes. I was going for it, you know, because I'm a skater. I'm just like, let's go for it, you know, and like, this is what happened. The kids like immediately freaked out. Don't let Ben pick it up. Don't let Ben pass again, you know. And it was just cool to me, like I'm different from a lot of skaters because I'll jump from the skate world out to the regular world, I guess, and like it's such a weird transition because like in skateboarding that would never happen. If I miss a trick, no one is going to pick on me and tell me never to try it again. Ha, loser! Or don't give Ben the board again. He might miss that trick. Like no one cares. It's just so weird to me of a concept that like I tried something and I failed, and they told me to never try it again. Like what? Did you just? Like it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around that. It's like I went for it and I almost got it. I'm gonna get it next time. That's my attitude. You know, that's what I'm used to. And my team, we did start making our passes, but you know, it's just fun. And it is sports art in a sense. There's sort of an artistic expression to it. And the cool thing about skateboarding is like you're free from the other team and the game. You're free from the game and the constrictions of like the touchdown that you have to get. And you like, so imagine like a really awesome play that you make in some sports game. Imagine being able to just do that whenever you want, to the point that you get over it and you want to do something cooler. You know, so like in football or basketball, if you make a shot or score a touchdown after the game's over, nobody cares. But it doesn't work that way in skateboarding. You want to go do it right now. Here's the stairs, or with the whatever, you know, the ramp, or as long as you have a thing. Of course, everyone's always trying to stop you and prevent you from having anywhere to skate. But anyway, the thing about art is God is an artist. And because God, of course, wants to express himself to us because he loves us. I mean, God is obviously a maximally good being in every way. Otherwise, we could conceive of a greater being, and then the God that even if the God exists, who is not the maximally great being, he would still wish he was a greater being, and then that greater imaginary being would be the real God. So, the real God, if he exists, or even if he doesn't, the concept would still be a being of ultimate love, because love is obviously a good thing. So, therefore, he loves us and he wants to express true love to us. And this is where it gets interesting. God is incredibly difficult for us to understand. If this was not the case, then we would not be us and he would not be God. He has to be difficult for us to understand. That's why we call him God. But because we have imagination, we can understand him in some way, in some glimpse, and slowly fill in the gaps forever and ever and ever. Okay, so, alright. There's a problem of pleasure. Why did God fill this world with so many pleasures if they so often become a problem? Sweet tasting drinks are addictive. You can plot the rise in obesity as they become more prolific. Okay? I have a friend who's over 400 pounds and shorter than me. Don't tell me food is not an addiction. This world is full of pleasures that corrupt us. Things we want in this world that are in themselves not bad. Think of all the evil things people have done just to gain power. There's nothing wrong with power. Power is not a bad thing. You know? But so often it is. It becomes a bad thing because we get obsessed with it. But the question we have to ask ourselves is like, well, what is the purpose of all these wonderful things, these wonderful pleasures God put in this world? I mean, what is the point of them? To express the wonderfulness of who and what he is. Why else would he have created them? He created them. So don't think that, like, I've heard ministers say, that stuff's not done for the Lord. That video game's not for Jesus, and that football game not for the Lord. You shouldn't be doing it. You should be reading your Bible and praying. And okay, so I don't want to downgrade the respect that we ought to have for the Bible or prayer. I mean, we spend more time texting pointless text than we could be talking to God. And we have a book that contains the thoughts, the very thoughts of God. We of course, it's hard to have too much respect for that. But at the same time, God is hard to understand. God created the world, and He called it good. It is a reflection of what He wanted us to see. Therefore, it is a reflection of Himself. The problem is we worship, as Paul says, we worship and serve the created thing rather than the creator of them. But if we understand, the created thing is really intended to help us understand the nearly impossible to understand creator. Now, I've used this example many times, like Bruce Lee said in Enter the Dragon. It's like a finger pointing towards the moon. Don't focus on the finger or you will miss all the heavenly glory. But you do need to notice the finger and pay attention to the finger because it serves a purpose. We see God through the wonderful things He created. They are a taste, a glimpse of the wonderfulness that He is. Every wonderful thing in this world is God's art form to petty little humans that to Him are less than ants under His foot. Now, the other day, it was a while back, April I think, doesn't matter, I had a flat bar, long flat bar, 14 feet long, 15 inches tall, 2-inch black pipe. Came up, and I just had this urge. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the fastest board slide I've ever done. Backside board slide. Everybody gets confused about the name. That means the rail's behind me as I come up to it, but I slide forward on it. Oh, I get it right. Okay, so the thing about skateboarding is you have to be there, like mentally, like on what you're doing, and you really have to tune the world out. If these people are paying attention to you and watching, you have to, like, you're not gonna land a trick if you're noticing them, like, because you really have, unless it's the easiest trick ever, and so you have to focus on what you're doing. Is the point. And so I was focused. I just had this urge. I was going to do a super fast board slide. Took a jillion pushes. One of the best board slides I've ever done. And like this dude, he must have been like 50-year-old man driving like a pickup truck. He's turning, and he like sees me, and he's like, and Junior, my friend, used to always say, everybody riding by is breaking their necks. And like, when we're skating, they're always like, everybody, it's awkward and weird. And then like random people just yell stuff at us all the time. Everything you can think of. Everybody thinks that they need to talk to us. But the point is that like, this guy came to a complete stop in the road to watch me do the board slide. My friends, was priceless. That's what it's all about. You see, because if God can express Himself through the pleasures and the wonderful things in this life, then maybe through my art form, your art form, whatever it is, you can get in on that. There's a wonderful story. It's an example of this. I've just heard it used as an example in sermons. I've never actually read or seen Babette's Feast. It's a story about these Lutherans who have really gotten into this, like, they eat gruel, which is like bread and water, and they drink water because they don't want any earthly pleasures to pull them away from the heaven. And it's a counter argument to that, because this woman is a prostitute, and she has nowhere to go. She's trying to get her life together, and she goes and stays with this like Lutheran monastery, and she winds up inheriting a large sum of money. And her name's Babette. And what she does is she spends every dime making the nicest meal these people have ever had. And the thing is, these people living in this monastery, these men and women, had developed a lot of bitterness towards one another, grouchiness, discord, strife, ill content, bad feelings, and because something about the wonderfulness of the meal and the pleasure of the meal opened their eyes up to the heart of God, and they came to a better understanding of God through the pleasure of good food. There was it expressed this concept of like goodness and life and love and living. It's hard for me to express it. Go eat some good food, but perhaps when you do that, you're getting a little taste of the wonderfulness that God is. And the idea in the story of Babette's feast is that, like, because of this meal, she was a tool, an artist who helped bring the redemption of God to these people. So, yeah, art's important. It's really important. It's not a waste of time. So don't make fun of people who do ballet or who do landscaping. Honestly, I have a lot of guys who work for me, like that guy I was telling you about, and he had no concept of how things look. He was just like, he thought we were out there doing important work. I've explained to you why that in the end that only